in South Louisiana, anyone who's got allergies, take this.
NAD is probably the biggest thing coming out right now on anti-aging. Normally, like when we're tight in here and you start getting that pressure and you're taking those joints and muscles through full range, this one feels almost addicting. So consistency over intensity. And then we're just going to roll up and down. It seems crazy, but when you go get massages and they're finding tightness in here, the first thing you need to do is start releasing this stuff. Kelly, thank you. You did the exercises last week and it helped a lot.
Good day, my friends. Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody is doing fantastic. We are bringing back and getting back rolling with Tea with Dr. D. Thank you for joining me. Basically, I come on here and answer whatever questions y'all have about health, healing. You can text me. A lot of people have. I do answer these. I try and just schedule time, so it's not going to be like the next day. But if you have health questions, have questions about supplements or whatever, I geek out on all these things. So you can text 801-691-7582. That goes straight to me. We can geek out on science or any of that fun stuff. If y'all have questions, that's what I'm here for. We started this a long time ago. It's kind of crazy. I started doing this during COVID because we were all kind of looking for health answers, and I really liked the interaction. So please say hi, interaction, ask questions. The team does pull some questions from the week in terms of like stuff that we've put out, and so we dive into that. But I'm really here for y'all. If there's any way that I can be a resource or get good information to you, that's what we are trying to do. So we're going to dive in. Y'all drop a line, say hi. I will kind of answer whatever I can, even if that means that I don't have a great answer for you. But sometimes that is the answer, right? Sometimes that's quite helpful to know as well. So we're going to dive into a couple of them. Let's see, Greejai, welcome. Hope you're doing well. How can I tell if my pain is coming from a nerve or a muscle? And I'd say that's probably one of the most common things that we see whenever somebody comes in is, are they having nerve pain or is a muscle causing it? And there's a couple things that we look at. Activity tends to make nerve pain worse. And so if we are moving a lot and it's muscle tends to kind of loosen up and get better as we move, right? It starts to like loosen and we feel better once we get moving. When we have a pinched nerve or an entrapped nerve and we keep moving it, it kind of progressively gets worse. That's one of the telltale signs of this. Another thing that we see a lot whenever it's nerve origin is typical meds like anti-inflammatories and stuff like that don't work real well on it. They work on the inflammation, but when a nerve is being pinched off, it starts to create this hypoxic event. So it's like not allowing oxygen to come to the nerve. And an anti-inflammatory like an NSAID doesn't address that. And so we still continue to have this like kind of pain because of the nerve being pinched like that. And so and another part is if you've just had treatments for like joint or muscle in the past, whether that's like injections or any of that, and they don't work, chances are it's coming from a nerve. Like chances are that nerve is being trapped. And that's why addressing like the muscle or joint issue didn't work. So when we're looking at these things, and we do have like, typical NSAIDs and medication doesn't help. Activity tends to make it worse. The way that we want to start to attack this is like, let's make sure the nerve can move how it's supposed to. So we want to go through and like find those areas where nerves are not moving very well. And then start to work on that stuff. We use a lot of different tools to kind of like break the nerve free. We use a lot of hands-on stuff. Dry needling is a good option if you are having nerve pain, to follow that nerve root and get that. There's a treatment where you use an a needle to go around the nerve, and you send an electrical signal to create a very big healing response. It's called percutaneous electrolysis. If we know where the nerve's trapped, we can go in under ultrasound guidance and find that spot and send a signal in there to basically loosen up all the tissue around it. So those things work really well to actually get a nerve or like scar tissue around the nerve better. Certainly PEA would be a good thing to add in and start to address if we are getting some compression around a nerve, start to address the inflammation in the nerve itself. We've talked about PEA on here before. It's a really neat compound that helps address neuroinflammation. So it targets it very specifically. It's not just kind of the whole system. So that could be of help. I think when we're looking at some of those things, the first part is if treatment to other tissues hasn't been effective, then definitely check out and get further assessment. Chances are it's coming from a nerve. Whenever you've tried movements making it worse, you've tried treatment to a muscle joint, the like typical NSAIDs aren't helping. And then there's some really good stuff that we see for that in terms of improvements and making nerve function better. One other thing that I talk about on these a lot that I think is really helpful is GHK copper is a peptide that gets like brushed aside because everybody talks about BPC, everybody talks about TB500, but GHK copper has a really neat ability to help when we're healing, to help us heal with more native-like tissue and less scar tissue. And when we scar around nerves, it gets really sticky. It's a tough thing to overcome. And GHK copper has a number of studies that show improvements in nerve healing, in actual nerve repair. So if we are trying to go into like the regenerative therapy and peptide world, I would look more at GHK copper than a lot of the other ones. So PEA and GHK copper are really cool compounds that mesh really well. So hopefully that helps. That's kind of how we think through nerve, muscle. How do we identify, and then what is our kind of treatment option there? So very good. Thank you, Grejai, however you want to say that. Hey, Sandy, how are you? I'm struggling with Baxter's neuropathy. Can you spell PEA? I cannot spell PEA for you. Palmitoyl ethanolamide is what PEA stands for. I'll spare y'all me trying to spell that on here. But if you look up like PEA and nerve, you'll find it. We use, if it's purely PEA, we get it compounded into a lot of the peptides that we use. So it's all in one thing. But we do use a very good brand called Mirica, M-I-R-I-C-A. Mirica is a very powerful PEA, helps a lot with nerve inflammation. Again, that's what I would start with. If it's just neuroinflammation, like we've got the pressure off the nerve and that nerve's just inflamed now, we start with PEA. It's a really good way of getting the inflammation in the nerve down. So yeah, look up Mirica and PEA nerve pain. That'll pop out a lot better than us trying to spell palmitoyl ethanolamide. But thanks for the question, Sandy. I hope that helps. Same thing to Grejai. If you can make sure that you're addressing the right thing. I'd say whenever we see patients who are dealing with, like, I've had some version of regenerative therapy or something like that in the past and it didn't work, it was always because it was like they targeted the wrong thing. They tried to treat the joint when it was the nerve. They tried to treat the muscle when it was the joint. There's a lot of powerful stuff in regenerative therapy these days. But you got to know what you're treating. It's got to be targeting the right thing. Hey, Olga, we are located in Lafayette, Louisiana, at 325 Oil Center Drive. So we are in Louisiana, but you can definitely give us a call. We can probably throw our office number up there. And if you go to acadianapain.com, that'll direct you to a lot of the online resources that we have and the office website and all that fun stuff. So we are here, South Louisiana, and born and raised. I'm excited to bring all of this stuff to Louisiana. Every time I'm somewhere speaking or something like that, they're always kind of like, wait, y'all are in Louisiana? It seems like y'all should be in some big city or something like that. I'm like, no, I love it. I love where I'm at. Beautiful. What else y'all got? Woodman 4444. How are you, man? I don't know if you're a man, but Woodman jumps out to me. What was a supplement you mentioned for Alzheimer's and brain's health? There's probably been a lot. One of the studies that we talked about fairly recently on brain health and Alzheimer's was a study that came out, and it was looking at the amount of glutathione in people's brains whenever they had Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's. And what they found was those brains were very low in glutathione. So glutathione is your body's like master antioxidant. It goes in and cleans up the cell stress whenever our body's trying to repair. So this is glutathione, something we've talked about a lot in terms of just health. Having good antioxidant function in your body just helps your body stay clean. Every time we break down oxygen, it creates these free radicals that go and pollute the internal environment, right? So we want to keep that as clean as we possibly can. And this study showed like the people who couldn't do that because they had low glutathione levels had, these were kind of a looking back. So we don't know that this is causative, but the brains of people who had Alzheimer's were depleted in glutathione, who had Parkinson's were depleted in glutathione. The research brain starts to tell you like, okay, well, do I need to, is it the chicken or egg? Like, did them having low glutathione levels lead to Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, or was their body using the glutathione to clean up the stress? Either way, you kind of say, raise those glutathione levels. So, this is just another reason. There's so many studies around glutathione and immune health, glutathione and inflammation, glutathione and cell health. So it's another thing that goes in there where you're like, we need glutathione to live healthily in the oxygen world that we have. So that's the supplement. There are many ways you can get glutathione in. Orally works really well. The liposome form works really well. We actually use like a version of glutathione that has NAC. It's kind of the individual components of glutathione. So your body absorbs them really well and then builds glutathione. There's been studies on that one that increases it like 300%. So pretty good elevation, but another vote for glutathione for sure. That's one of the very few supplements that I never stop taking throughout the year. Your body uses it to clean up, oxidative stress regularly. So we do kind of need to like keep replenishing those amounts. So hope that helps. If you have an interest in kind of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's prevention, any of that stuff, put glutathione very high on your list. There's some very interesting research coming out. I'll have a podcast coming out here very soon with Dr. John Lewis. And if you're interested in any brain health stuff, you're going to want to tune into that one. It's very eye-opening. I'll be sending that to a lot of family and friends. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned, pay attention to the podcast and check out the episode with Dr. John Lewis whenever it comes out. So what else we got? Hey, Jen, how are you? Can we still register for the pelvic floor workshop? You can, but it's, do it very fast is going to be my answer. We have a pelvic floor workshop next Wednesday. If you're watching this live, you can still register. But I know that seats are they're very tight. So go and register really quickly if you're interested in doing that. Dr. Chloe Hammett and Jordan Delaney will be talking about some of the latest breakthroughs in pelvic floor treatment, pelvic floor therapy, like basically kind of the most advanced protocols that are available right now for pelvic floor healing. So Yes, is my answer, but don't dilly dally, as they say. But yeah, I'm really excited to hear and be a part of that. So get in there. Hey, Laurie, how are you? Regarding FMD, fasting mimicking diet, for those of you joining us, definitely need this. I think we all do. Thank you. How often do we need to do it? That's kind of a question that we get a lot on the fasting mimicking diet, is how often should we be going into that state? I think it's one of the things that gets to be kind of dependent on how many comorbidities and how many like disease factors do we have. So basically, if someone has like metabolic dysfunction, they need to do it very regularly. There's been a bunch of studies that have shown like people with diabetes do it the first 5 days of the month, every month for like 6 straight months. And that reduced the symptoms of diabetes massively, to the point where the vast majority of them did not show signs of diabetes anymore. And so you're like, if they extend that out, they did another study where they did 12 months and they did it every other month. And again, these are people who have diabetes. So they're doing this to completely reset the body. So the answer is like, okay, if we have diabetes, if we have obesity that's not responding to diet, if we have inflammation, then my answer is to do it once a month until those symptoms are gone. And that seems to match what the current research is showing. Once you get to that point, if you're just doing it for like anti-aging, healing, longevity benefits, maybe anti-cancer benefits, then you're looking at like, okay, do it like once a quarter. That's what we shoot for, is doing it about 4 times a year. Get your body into that autophagy state. Go through all of the ketogenic changes. And one of the things that we see a lot, if people have a sweet tooth, you have a really tough time getting off of sugar. When you force your body to get into ketosis, it gives you like a buffer zone of a few weeks of like your sweet tooth is just kind of down. Like it's your body gets used to using, ketones as fuel, and it kind of resets that craving cycle. And so this is something I've told people, like, I'm like, use it. And if you start to notice that you're really kind of starting to crave things again, like do another cycle, and you can almost use your body to tell you when to do it. But I would say low end twice a year, Laurie. I would say for most people, if you have great muscle mass and you have good body composition, do 4 times a year, do it once a quarter. And then if we're symptomatic, we're inflamed, we're diabetic, then we're probably doing it the first week of the month until we get ahead of those symptoms, or at least every other month. And there's a number of studies that show just absolutely incredible changes if we do it that way. I love the research they're putting out. I love their commitment to continuing to, provide good quality things that just reinform research. So hopefully that helps. Fasting mimicking diet's powerful. I think we're going to continue to see bigger changes and bigger research coming out from the Prolon and L-Nutra group. But I love what they're doing. So hope that helps, my dear. Heather, how are you? I hope you are doing very, very well, ma'am. Can you still have a hip labrum tear without one showing up on an MRI? You would be my answer, especially without contrast. If you think of what the labrum is like our like cup around it. And if we have mild tears, unless you stress that tear, it could be almost like closed up, if that makes any sense. So like it closes, and if it's at rest, it's there. And think of what the MRI is. This is the issue with MRIs, is it's a Polaroid in time. It's like a snapshot of what does your body look like. It's very high definition one, but in that position, in that moment. And so if we're not stressing the tissue, it could look completely normal. And I've seen this when we had patients who had like an MRI that looked pretty normal, or it had like very minor tears. And then they go in and they get scoped, and while they're in there and they can actually move and stress it, they're like, oh yeah, there was quite a few things that we did not see that was more involved than we thought based on the MRI. And so like I've seen that quite a few times, which tells us absolutely they can kind of be obscured. And then you get into the whole idea of like, what is the image quality of the MRI? What is the image quality of the machine? So I think it's certainly possible that in that position, everything is kind of relaxed. There's no stress on the labrum in those positions. You would typically think if it's a bad enough tear, they would see some inflammation and they'd see some issues with it, but it's definitely a possibility. And this is why we don't treat the image, right? If the stress tests kind of show labral tear pathology, if the symptoms show labral tear pathology, and that matches everything, then at that point we kind of, treat it as if it's a labral tear, depending on improvement, right? So you would hope that if you treat like a labral tear, even with a negative MRI, if you think that, then we should see improvements with it. So yes, and seek more information is my answer. You're welcome. Hey, Brooke, can you expand on the cortisol reset I spoke about? Yes. I've talked a lot about cortisol lately. Cortisol has gotten just an absolute like bad name for some strange reason in like many circles, that like cortisol is terrible. It's the stress hormone. Cortisol is like a very good thing to have at the right time. We want your cortisol. I talked about this earlier today. So we want cortisol to raise in the morning, and then we want cortisol to drop off and fall off and be its lowest kind of, the early night, in the middle of the night, kind of early sleep phase, depending on the person. And then usually like, I don't know, let's say 4 or 5 a.m., that should start to climb. What we see with a lot of people who have a lot of fatigue and they have trouble sleeping and they're waking up is that their cortisol cycle has gotten dysregulated. And so what happens in that situation is that the cortisol doesn't rise. It's blunted in the morning and then it's higher in the evening. And so like the curve is almost flipped over and it just messes everything up. We're not sleeping very well. Our energy is not good. We don't feel great. And so we need to reset that cortisol curve. There's a few ways of doing that. One of the easiest ways is to get bright light early in the morning. And so that can be done naturally. Obviously, you wake up and you kind of get in the light very early. Spending your first 20 or 30 minutes outside can be really helpful to start to boost cortisol. When light hits your eyes, it actually starts to stimulate cortisol release. And so getting bright light helps a lot. If you don't have the ability to get outside every day, you can do that artificially. There are these like bright, like 10,000 lumen lights that are meant to help stimulate you in the morning. And then one of the things I noticed and started to see a lot of people doing was like blue light blocking glasses all day long. You don't want to do that. You need that like bright blue light to stimulate this in the first half of the day at least. So light and then activity, movement in the early part of the day does a really good job of starting to boost cortisol. So for a few days in a row, what you would do is like do bright light in the morning and activity, like 10 minutes of like a somewhat strenuous activity, whether that's working out, whether that's doing a walk, doing some squats, whatever your activity is that really kind of gets the heart going. Pair those together if you possibly can, doing that first thing in the morning. So that starts to boost your cortisol level early. In the evening, we need to do a couple of things. We need to move dinner as early as you feasibly can. So that might be like 5 or 6 p.m. for some people getting home early. So make sure you're eating dinner quite early, because if you eat very late, one of the things that happens is it does kind of keep that cortisol level higher. So eat dinner early and then lower all the lights in your house as soon as the sun goes down, almost, especially if you're trying to reset this. So, just have lamps on, turn all your overhead lights off. Everything should be kind of dim and dull. If you do this day in and day out for a few days, you're going to start to really see that like your energy during the day starts to elevate, and then you're getting better sleep at night. Sometimes this takes a while. I have seen patients who had gotten like their cortisol cycle gotten flipped, and it lasted for years because they never could come out of it. And that's them basically saying, I can't get tired. I can't go to sleep until, midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And then I'm sleeping till, 10, 11, 12. And they just get stuck in this cycle, and it's just hormone dysregulation, and we can reset it. So bright lights, activity early in the morning. In the evening, have your meals earlier and lower the lights, and really try and slow down in that last hour of the day. Try and bring that energy, start to tell your body to shut down. And that should start to kind of get that cortisol level to start dropping off much faster in the evening. And if you do this regularly, you'll reset that typical rhythm of your cortisol cycle throughout the day, and you're going to feel so much better. They see signs of that with certainly energy, hormone regulation, inflammation, all of the above. So I hope that helps. It's really important. And just knowing it, if you ever get off, is like an easy way to get back on. This is one of the reasons I think people like working out in the morning so much. I've talked about it a little bit. I think you really reinforce a very healthy cortisol cycle. If you wake up and work out first thing, you boost cortisol very regularly. I think all the benefits to morning workouts are partially related to that for sure. So, another little vote for the morning workout anyway. So, hope that helps, but let me know if you have any further questions on that. I like that topic. I might do a little podcast doing a deep dive on some of that stuff. So, love it. Thank y'all so much. We're going to get back rolling with our monthly Tea with Dr. D episodes. And we will keep an eye out for next month. And it'll be on March 25th, right? Today's February 25th. So March 25th, 6 p.m. Put it on your calendar. Share it with your friends. We're going to get on. We'll answer questions, do whatever we need to do, help you out. Ask me anything. As you know, I'm here for it. I may not be able to spell some of the words that you're asking for, but thank y'all. Have a great day, everyone. Remember, do like one thing to get a little bit healthier today. And I'll see y'all next month. Y'all have a great day.